Doing basic studio photography doesn't need to be complicated or expensive. This tutorial will show you the basics of shooting a product with just a single light. The simplicity of this setup means we can do it in a very small space. Here I'm using a piece of white paper, white walls, an inexpensive studio strobe, a light stand, and a white umbrella. The camera I'm using is an old Nikon DSLR with an 85mm lens. It's important that this camera has a hot shoe and that I can change the shooting settings. Speaking of settings, let's change them to what we want. First, change to manual mode and change the shutter speed to your camera's max flash sync speed. Mine is 1/250th of a second, but I'm going to change it to 1/200th of a second just to be safe. Next, let's change the aperture to f4 to start with. We'll dial this in later. I'll also change the ISO to my camera's native ISO setting, which is 64 for this camera. Finally, change the color balance to flash. This will keep the color consistent in our images. I'm going to use remote triggers to control the strobe from the camera. These are CyberSync I got about 15 years ago, but there are lots of cheap options now. First, plug in the trigger to the hot shoe of the camera. And here's the receiver. We can plug it into the strobe with a basic 3.5mm cable. So here's the final setup for my shot. All I need to do is pull the trigger. If the image is too dark or too bright, you can either change the power setting on the flash or the aperture setting on the camera. The shutter setting can be left alone. If you're thinking a light meter would be useful here, you're right, but they're pretty expensive. It's true that every image can benefit from post-processing, but doing a little prep work to ensure a good quality starting place will mean the processed image will be even better. Studio photography doesn't need to be complicated, stressful, or expensive, and a basic setup like the one I've shown you can be a great outlet for your creativity. Thanks for watching.